I don't know. Looks like we might have some success.
Might.
I hear him.
He's there. Well, no, at least there he is.
Oh God!
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. It wouldn't let me in. I don't know what was up.
It's that California internet, man.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. I heard an do you guys watch Kevin's Fat Man streams? Fat Man on Batman, regularly? I caught this last episode where he was talking the last episode of WandaVision, and on the topic you and I were on, Mike, before Manny showed up late. They were talking about internet speed, and apparently the richest of the rich in Hollywood Hills are stuck either using 4G, 5G, like the majority of them on a certain side of Hollywood Boulevard, are stuck either using cellular data or satellite internet. Yes, Kevin Smith is stuck using satellite internet from home, which causes a lot of issues during his streams from there versus when he's other places. And apparently the red tape for even a business, because the guy that owns the not Filth and Villainy, is that what it's called? Filth and Villainy Cantina or whatever. Anyways, that guy said that LA County told him it would take a few years and a crap ton of money just to get the permits to try to get fiber optic put in that bar. And he was just like, it's not worth it. Satellite dish on top, suck it up and drive on.
That sucks.
So, good morning, everybody, and welcome to LR Mornings today with a full house. Myself, Kyle. I'm also joined by Mike Connolly, Shockey, and Manny Gomez. What's up, buddy?
Nothing much. I guess our show yesterday must have caught the attention of Mike, because I think now we're being watched.
Oh,
that's what it feels. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's kind of like the big boss man's looking in. Mike, how's it going?
Oh, it's good. I mean, you said you needed a co-host for tonight. Yeah. I was free, so I thought I might as well join in.
I love it. That's the great thing about this show is it's really got no freaking structure.
No, that's great. That's what I totally enjoy. I'm a fan of those type of podcasts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And we could have a slew of wonderful news stories to talk about, from things like the canceled plot of Iron Fist season 3. We could talk about awesome casting news like in the Last of Us, or we could sit around and bullshit about the well, how did I have this phrase in my mind? The equally painful and glorious age of geekdom. What I kind of mean by the glorious and painful is we've got so much content out there despite the virus and the pandemic. We have a large selection of video games, comics, novels, streaming series, and yes, later on there will be some movies coming on today. Manny and I talked about Last of Us yesterday a bit, Mike, and talked about what we saw as a smart idea of going series with the game versus what the other studios trying to make money and off of movies, trying to aim for that. We can make $300 million off this movie versus a series, and just kind of wondering, what do you think is actually the best vehicle for video games to be transitioned into a narrative story to be told on screen, movies or shows?
Okay, so if it's if you're doing a video game like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mortal Kombat, some of the more popular ones, whatever, that really doesn't have a narrative in their games, it's more just gameplay, then I
Right.
think movies is the best way to do it. You have the longer cinematic to draw things out, introduce characters. Video games that have a narrative, like Assassin's Creed, I thought was a bad idea to do in a movie. I thought that was better. It would be more fit if you did it in kind of anthology TV show, and each season was a different time period, than trying to cram everything into a hour and a half, movie that only the diehard fans that play that game are actually going to go see. So like
Yeah.
Last of Us, I mean, that's going to be tough for me to really. I haven't played either game. I have them both of them, and I just time gets away from me. I haven't played. I before when the movie does come out, I'll play them, and so that I can compare. But I don't have high expectations for it. We've seen attempts at this before with different video games being transitioned into movies, and for the most part, it doesn't work well. But I think that depending on what video game, like the Resident Evil series did really well because of their cult fan following. But if you think about it, it was a series. I mean, there was 9 of them total. Yeah. So I mean,
six of the live, I think 6 live action, and then Capcom has 3 or 4 CGI ones.
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, that's like, to me, that could have been stretched out. I mean, either way, it worked itself out. But if you look at it, that's to get it to that success. I mean, that was a lot of films. I mean, budget wise, they were very cheap, and was it Mila Jovovich, who was the star of it, was, she just loved that role. And
her husband directed them, and
and so I mean, it was good for it. So if you find a situation like that, great. But if not, I mean, I think Assassin's Creed, Netflix is doing it right, where they're going to do a series on it with Assassin's Creed.
So.
Yeah,
I think I've heard similar.
Yeah,
we'll see what actually comes to fruition.
Yeah, they made the announcement, I think now, like over a month ago. I think it was right around December time. So I think that's a smart move. They did it with Castlevania. I only watched like the first season. I don't know if you guys watched it. Yeah.
So okay, and that's a missing thing, Manny, that Shockey brings up is animation. I feel it's underutilized for our demographic. The youngest of the Gen X and the older of the millennials that we love the adult animation of Family Guy and stuff, and because we grew up watching Simpsons, but I personally would love to see more properties, everything from Power Rangers to Ninja Turtles, even Ghostbusters, get the Castlevania / since Powerhouse is also doing it, and speaking of Kevin Smith, the Masters of the Universe. What do you think, Manny, about using animation to potentially bring some video games to life? And can you think of one that might really benefit from being animated like Castlevania was?
Probably if you do like Devil May Cry,
that would be a good animated one.
Nice.
That would be pretty good. I mean, Mortal Kombat, I think probably one of their best features has been the Warner Brothers animated film that they did, Mortal Kombat Legends, Scorpion's Revenge. Warner Brothers has used that part of their arsenal very well lately in being able to produce mature stories with their DC properties also, but things like this, like Mortal Kombat. So yeah, absolutely, you definitely should be taking advantage of the animated field. But I mean, also, just because it'll cut costs greatly, probably a BioShock animated series
Yes.
might be easier to pull off than to try to do something live action. Which by all means, I would like them to try, but like with most comic book adaptations, I'm not comic book. Sorry, that's the comic book guy in me talking. Most video game adaptations, I'm not holding my breath. So you know, just to see what happens.
Did both of you guys see Double Dragon when it came out back in the 90s?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
But you know what's a good I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched them, but with animated, but the all the Street Fighter anime series that they created over in Japan and stuff that they dubbed over here in the United States in the late 90s, early 2000s, those were all successful overseas, and that was
very much so. The fighting game genre in anime had several, including King of Fighters and
King of Fighters. That's right. Mm-hmm.
Do real well, and fuck that in one night I discovered, or should I say rediscovered anime, like in the modern sense, because I'd seen like Voltron and Robotech, Speed Racer when I was real little, but one night my buddy showed me Ninja Scroll.
Ninja Scroll, oh my gosh, I think every kid in the anime seen that one.
Street Fighter the movie 2, or Street Fighter 2 the movie, and Dragon Ball, is it Tree of Might? I think it's one of the first Dragon Ball movies where Goku's an adult. Oh, okay. And that was like my crash course into, by the way, anime is not what you think it is. And I got into it heavy after that, and yeah, I agree. Animation is such an underutilized form, so much so we're actually, you mentioned it, Manny, Warner Brothers, we're supposed to get something animated from Game of Thrones, right? Isn't that a rumor?
I hadn't heard of that before.
I don't follow Game of Thrones as much as everyone else. I might be confusing two things.
The Game of Thrones rumors are going crazy. I know in the past like 2 weeks, it went from the already announced filming prequel series to now there's supposedly like 4 to 5 series in development. I think one of them's animated.
Yes, Hollywood Reporter reported on it on the 27th, an animated drama. So again, I point, it's a glorious time to be a geek, because here's Hollywood doing things that we're already talking about,
right?
And yet it's also painful, because the normal things that we are used to, going to the movies, and getting cons, big and small, like all of that not only is being affected by, of course, the pandemic, but geek and pop culture combined in the mid 2000s finally completely to where I'm sure you guys can remember the difference between Comic-Con 07, 08 in San Diego, and then look at 9 and 10 on up, and seeing how oversaturated some companies can try to make the market with all these geek properties. You know, comic book movies going down the tube again like it's 1990s all over. Look, I mean, it kind of sucks how great Marvel did because everyone else wanted to copy it, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you make money like what Disney and Marvel were able to do, yeah, everybody's going to want to do that. I mean, there was hardly any video game movies made, I would say, from 2000. You had the Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter,
The Resident Evils.
Resident Evils. That was pretty much it. And then you had some other,
sprinkling here,
sprinklings, but they were like low budget B, C movies that weren't really made to make a ton of money.
What's that guy's name? Ewell made the Blood Rain films.
Oh,
and a bunch of other
right. I forgot. Yeah, those were bad. Those were horrible. But yeah, so then Marvel makes all this money. So then you got the Tomb Raider revival of the Tomb Raider movie, and that didn't pan out. Assassin's Creed, the trying to do the Final Fantasy, that's gotten off. It found a writer, found a director, then gets shut down because of creative differences. That I don't think there will ever be a Final Fantasy movie live action ever made and stuff.
No, and the series that they say they want to do, I still don't necessarily want that.
Yeah, so
I got a good question for you, Manny. Well, it's a good question for all three of us, but Manny does a lot of the comic book stuff with Jace often, I know, and we can kind of look in history at movies and comic book movies and almost point to the exact date and time. You actually can when comic book movies went from being a joke and only for kids to being taken serious. And I think that, of course, would be Burton's Batman.
No, that would be Christopher Reeves.
You think
Superman.
Reeves?
Yeah,
I still think the corniness was set in there on purpose with a love and adoration corniness, I should say. That's why I meant the serious take on Burton's first Batman.
Well, it's just a difference in characters. You have Superman, who's supposed to be a symbol of hope.
Right.
It's supposed to be that lighter take on that character,
right,
while Batman is broody, Batman is dark.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you're looking at a time period when that movie dropped, but also in comic book stores you have books like Watchmen, you have
right,
like
and Dark Knight Rises or Returns, and all of that.
Yeah, so it just speaks of that specific time period, and it's just different characters. But if you don't have the success of Superman, I don't think you have Batman either.
Yeah, no, just like if you don't have Adam West Batman, does Batman make it into the world that he is today? Probably not. Maybe I should rephrase it. And I'm not quite sure how I want to make the point that I was trying to make. I thought I had made it right, but I guess not. Regardless, we do know that comic books were treated as a childish thing for a long time. Movies and television and all that helps bring it into everyday households, but we had to go through a lot of growing pains with comic book movies, even in the post Reeves, post Batman 89 era, with things you look at like the Spirit or the Phantom. Sorry if anybody's a big Billy Zane Phantom fan. You look at God, there's any number of bad examples to get to all of the good ones. Manny or Mike, what do you guys think it is in the studio rooms where that disconnect is in getting something from page to screen successfully? Is it what a lot of fans think, where the execs are just disconnected from the fandom? What do you think? Why did Marvel succeed and others fail with their comic book movies?
So I think you got to look at it in two eras. So you had the 70s, 80s, and 90s when superhero films were being made during that time period. it was at the same time you're making a film, but you're also selling merchandise. That was a good way to make up all the budget and to make a profit. You were hoping that at that time, big budget movies would just barely break even with advertising. So then merchandise would sell out and that would basically be your profit. Then you look at the turn when you have Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. And what that showed is that you could make a superhero film and you did not have to sell really any, you didn't have to target and sell any merchandise for it. And so that opened the door for, other studios and mainly Disney to really look at it and say, let's take a gamble. Let's get a big budget in this film with, starting off with Iron Man. Let's get a good director. A good actor, a Robert Downey Jr. at that time, still was a great actor. He had his troubled past, but still, but really flesh out a story. But the thing is that they weren't going to focus on merchandise just yet. That this was going to be something that if it really took off, then it would work itself out. Now, Disney is Disney. They can work its way and come out with these great movies like Endgame, and also too have a bunch of cool toys that come out with it and get the best of both worlds. And that's where superhero films, comic book movies, really, studios love that when you can bring in dollars in the in the theaters and then bring in money in the toy stores or online now, great. You're basically, living, the American dream. Video games, that's different because you can't make a movie and expect somebody to go buy a video game after. The end game is different there. So it's, what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to make a great cinematic film, or are you doing this to try to get more people to go play Last of Us or, Assassin's Creed or something else that way? And that's just the majority of people who go watch these films already bought it, already have the merchandise. So it's a fine line to see where you can make that profit up. When Disney, look at the lower end of Disney films or the Marvel films, like the Thor movies, besides Thor Ragnarok doing, do well at the movie studio or the budget, box office. Chris Hemsworth's Thor action figures and statues and merchandise still sells.
Yeah.
You can't do that in the video game era.
Manny?
Yeah, it's corporate interference, man. You can go back to the 90s and look at Batman Returns and what he wanted to do with the third film. But you know what the main catalyst was for getting rid of bringing in Joel Schumacher? McDonald's.
Yes.
Yep.
It was McDonald's. McDonald's wanted to sell toys, but unfortunately, Tim Burton's character was too dark. So they had to make
Batman kills a clown in Batman Returns, straight up puts a bomb in his belt and shoves him down a well. Boom. Batman's a killer.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite movie.
I love
Batman Returns.
Love it.
Yeah. And so we can see it from then, and then we look at other studios like Viacom, Paramount, who their entire ploy is to sell toys.
Correct.
Transformers, Ninja Turtles, those properties are meant to sell toys, not necessarily make a great movie, which is why I guess Michael Bay still was able to make so many movies. And then you look at Marvel and DC, and you look at what Marvel was able to do because of Jon Favreau and what he did with Iron Man, and then they were able to connect that all together. They had a plan and they stuck to it. They had a long-term plan. And you look what DC did. They had a good thing going, and then just because of some fan reactions, they panicked and completely dropped off what they wanted to do. And it's been a mess ever since. Yeah. And now you get this thing called the Snyder Cut, kind of saying, oops, you guys did want this, so look here, we're going to give it to you. So, but if you look at DC, the issue is there's been a super disconnect between their writers, their directors, and their the corporate head honchos. AT&T, big AT&T has no idea what they're doing with DC. No. And on the other side, it's streamlined. Everything goes through Feige, They have the writers, they have everything. You can tell because of the way you can enjoy shows like WandaVision that is a 30-minute show, but it connects 10 years of work that they've already put into it. Well, over 10 years now.
Yeah.
So
And the same thing can be said with video game movies. I mean, these directors will be hired to direct a video game movie, but never played the game or not even talk to any of the developers or anybody who wrote the story for these video games. They're like, oh no, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do my own interpretation of it. And and that's why they fail.
I can see that. I was going to say, we all know the history of Image Comics and why McFarlane and them brought Image about, and it's Marvel kind of did that own approach with their movies, where they were like, okay, all the other studios are messing our stuff up, let's do it ourself, in house. Let's take our properties and do what we want with them, just like McFarlane Company said, let's take our comic book characters and do what we want with them. Marvel doesn't want to play game, DC doesn't want to play game, fine, we'll do it ourselves. And I like that. And again, golden age, but painful at the same time, because we can look at Marvel and go, wow, look what they accomplished. And then you look at IMDb under the word Spawn, for example, and you're like, okay, one movie, an animated series, and then a bunch of failed attempts at getting a movie. And yet, the fandom is there. It's different than the MCU. But what is keeping the studio from listening to the knowledgeable voice? You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's pride. It's
so weird.
And you can't sell Spawn toys to 10-year-olds. That's the problem.
Right.
Well, yeah, but we know Logan did well, and we know Deadpool did well, and you can sell Spawn. I mean, in the 90s, they made Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves toys. Anybody remember those?
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
But McFarlane had to create his own toy line to sell Spawn.
He did.
No,
but it's
none of the toy brands would carry it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, none of the toy brands would carry Spawn. So he says, "Fine, I'll create my own, my own toy brand," and he did it, that way. But that was, Spawn is a good comparison to look at, because you look at the animated series that was on HBO. Mm-hmm. Todd McFarlane had his finger on that and basically helped with the storyline. The movie, the studio, I forgot which studio ran with it, but wanted nothing to do with McFarlane and stuff. And I remember, because I was I think it was a Dragon Con when the year that it came out, and I was at the panel, I think I was 12, 13 years old and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I thought that I was going to see Todd McFarlane there, and he had nothing to do with it. It was Michael J. White, who was the star of it? Yeah, he was there. I forgot the director's name and stuff, but Todd McFarlane wasn't there. And I was kind of disappointed about that, because at that time, like, McFarlane was the man, because his run of doing Spider-Man and then creating Spawn, I mean, he was like, up there, popularity, and it was really weird not to see him there. And then we go watch the movie, and it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
You like John Leguizamo?
That was John Leguizamo's worst decision ever, and I think it ultimately is what killed his career there for a while in the 90s, man.
You don't think it was Mario Brothers?
No,
or 1-2 punch.
Hey, listen, I give him credit for at least attempting Mario Brothers, but that whole what was the name of the character he played in Spawn?
The clown thing. I can't remember its name.
The demon.
He's a Violator.
Violator. Yeah, that was absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
horrible.
Yeah, I mean, and the sad thing is what we're talking about now is because I have to mention this because I'm a comic book guy, and Jason and I have been covering this in the last few weeks. The biggest issue now is, so we have all these amazing Marvel movies, right? And to be fair, we have some decent DC movies. We have The Walking Dead, we have Preacher, we have just a plethora of comic book
Lucifer,
related,
Sandman, Watchmen.
yeah, The Boys, yeah. So all of this, right? And everybody loves it, but it's not. It doesn't really translate to comic book sales. And then the problem is, and the biggest problem is that these companies are coming in and buying the publishers, and just to suck the stories out of them and not really give a crap about current storylines, continuities, characters, etc. It's all about just making money. Just look at what DMG did to Valiant.
Mm-hmm.
They were completely on the rise, and what ended up happening is that everybody left, and now they have their own new company called Bad Idea. And actually a similar thing's happening over at DC, where you're seeing a lot of creators. Jeff Johns is going to have a creator-owned book at another publisher because he can't do what he wants at DC.
Wow.
I mean, if you look at the direction they're going right now, you don't know exactly what it is. Marvel Comics, their bread and butter is variant covers.
Mm-hmm.
And they had done this whole X-Men thing to try to make everything flow right, and now it is super complicated. It only took them a year or two. Like with Hickman, we thought it was going to be, I was excited for it.
Yeah.
And then it just ended up being just as bad as everything
else. Look what he did with Fantastic Four. Yeah, you would expect him to do well with X-Men, It was kind of like Slott on Spidey.
Right. So just because, it translates in pop culture, the source material is not doing very well. This year in particular, Jason and I are very adamant that independent comic books, which is why it was interesting that you brought up Todd McFarlane Image in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see a huge rise as far as the core comic book fans. They're going to be gravitating towards Image, Aftershock, Boom Studios, who actually have been doing such a great job with
Power Rangers,
mm-hmm. Things like that. So you're don't be surprised if all these other companies start doing a little bit better now, because like, for example, DC, it's run by AT&T, and they give a damn about comic books.
Right. So, well, I mean, so my day job is a high school teacher, and talking to the students, like when you announce, like when Miss Marvel, it was announced that who's that? No clue. That's a comic book character. Captain Marvel is a comic book character. Like, they know their core comic book, but everything else that now that Marvel's coming out with, DC with Aquaman, what? Aquaman's a real character and stuff. I thought it was just a joke that they did on SNL and stuff and everything. And it's just, it doesn't translate. You don't see kids going from the movie theater saying, let me go to the comic book store. Like that was the thing in the 90s, was like, go see a movie, you go see your B movie, like the Spirit, or the fan, all those or the Batman animated series movie, Mask of the Phantasm, that would translate into the comic book store. And you're not seeing that today. There's no correlation. There's no teamwork between that, because the movie studios they don't get any money from it, so they don't care. They're saying, whatever, we're getting our big money in our box office and our merchandise that we license out. Done.
I think part of what gave Disney and Marvel their early success was legitimately, like Manny said earlier, Disney left Kevin alone. They said, you've got your experiment. We're willing to lose this money. If it succeeds, great. If it doesn't, we've already were expecting it not to, is how I imagine that they approached it. Because they were like, what's the worst that could happen is we make this movie our way, it fails, we lose the money. We let him make it his way, it fails, we lose the money. Or we let him make it his way, it succeeds, and we get to move forward. And I imagine that something similar had to have happened, because Iron Man seems to break a lot of traditional studio rules in the way that it was made and came out, and just the whirlwind and reception. Like, Iron Man and the MCU is such an enigma. And again, that golden age of geekdom. WandaVision, perfect example. Manny and I think talked about this a little bit, and Nick and I have talked about it a lot. WandaVision is so laden with MCU meta stuff and comics meta stuff, to the point to where almost half the mystery will be lost if you don't at least know the general gist of Wanda and Vision, White Vision, and House of M. Like, if you don't know the general gist of those three, I think you're missing out on some of what makes WandaVision special. But there's enough there. Like, my wife, she doesn't know those stories like I do, but she knows the movies super well, and she knows a lot of comic stories well enough. Marvel has gotten people so invested that even when they're missing half the information, they're still watching. And I don't see anyone else, not Lucasfilm, not anyone else, able to kind of do that, to where literally they don't even give you half the story in the product anymore. And it's still good, and people are still watching it and loving it. And I just I as a business guy, I look at Sony, my favorite punching bag, and I look at them and I'm like, you guys have been told repeatedly, your executives don't know what the hell they're doing. Why do you keep letting them make choices? So where, Mike, do you think, or when, if ever, do you think studios start looking at their content creators with the same trust as Disney gave Kevin?
Well, that's the key where there's trust. And you listen, Kevin Feige is a great storyteller. Jon Favreau is a great storyteller. I mean, that's, you look at Favreau's work going all the way back to when he made Swingers and made some of his early stuff. I mean, Elf is one of the most iconic, holiday movies of all time. And that's Favreau, and people don't realize, and they're like, wait, that's Jon Favreau. Christopher Nolan. The reason why he was basically given free reins at Warner Brothers, because he's a great storyteller. As crazy as his movies are, I can sit there and watch. I think I've watched Tenet like probably 30 times, and I still pick up a new thing. I wish I had seen that movie in theaters. That was so good. But they're far and few. That's what the thing is that finding a great storyteller and be able to have that confidence, that's not easy. Like, that's why Lucasfilm will hold on to Dave Filoni as long as possible, because he is the protege of George Lucas, and Filoni came, and started in SpongeBob SquarePants, and then but where he kind of honed his craft was in Avatar, and then making his way into Star Wars and Clone Wars and stuff, and going that route, and having that. And so Zack Snyder, I honestly, I think his cinematography, and I like his style of movies. I don't think he's a great storyteller, though. There's only one movie that I think that he nailed it right on, and it was 300. Everything else, just the flow to it, there's something that I always like miss out on, and stuff like, where I'm sitting there like, I like it. I love the way it looks. I like the way it sounds. It's got all that, comic book feel to it, but there's just something missing in the story. And that's where I don't think Zack Snyder is the worst person in the world, right? Or like, I don't think he destroyed the Batman and Superman saga and stuff like that. I actually like his take on Superman. I think it's different than the traditional comic book. I know that it's against the traditional norm of Superman. I liked it, but I agree that the whole movie Man of Steel, there's something missing to it. It just didn't flow right. And so finding someone like a Feige, finding someone, like a, Filoni or a Favreau, that's difficult because there's so many people that are like, oh, I've read the comics, I know everything about it. I mean, there's probably thousands of people that could recite, all the stories, but can you take that knowledge and really tell a story? And that's difficult. And so you have these executives that their job is to make millions of dollars every single year. And then they take a gamble on, some of these guys, and then their movie gets panned, and then they freak out. They're like, we need another person. Let's get somebody else in. So yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see, that ever happen ever again.
Manny, do you potentially think if there's it's not going to happen. This is a complete what if, but much like the call across the world for younger politicians, do you think because both Marvel and Lucasfilm have seen a little bit of this where a young fan comes in to the company and works their way up. I remember talking to Wade, talking to Wade, and no, it was Bagley. It was Bagley. I talked to both of them in the same day. But anyways, Bagley was telling me that was telling us at a panel that at his time at Marvel, when the movies were getting really big, somebody wanted to know about editors coming in and being like, "Oh, this is happening in the movies, so make this comic match more of the movie." And he said that at least at first that wasn't happening. The comics were allowed to be the comics, but then we noticed in the 2010s, Disney/Marvel throwing the publisher's weight around to affect movies, merchandise, books themselves. Like, Marvel really knew how to play with their pages to affect other businesses in a way that was almost kind of scary. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, when they basically killed off all advertising for X-Men and Fantastic Four to hurt Fox.
Yeah. I mean, money talks. And the reality is, at the end of the day, if you don't have a Fantastic Four book, then nobody's going to be talking about Fantastic Four in the comic book world. Because if you think about it, when a book is released, you have preview pages, you have FOCs, which is when, the last day to order it.
Yep.
There's buzz, and then things happen to the characters.
Letters,
happen to characters.
all that great stuff.
Yeah, things happen to characters in the comic books that are, years and years ahead of something that can happen in a TV show or a movie. And sometimes a new character is revealed, the gender is swapped on a character, things that are scandalous. But guess what? On social media, with your friends at the bar or wherever you talk comics, you're talking about it. You're talking about that character. But if the studio didn't have the rights to that character, they didn't want you talking about him. So yeah, that's exactly what they did. That they kind of they killed Wolverine for a while.
Yeah. And
they got rid of the X-Men, and it became very obvious of the fact that what they were trying to do, even though they'll never admit it bluntly, but it's the money. They're bringing in the money, and so they're gonna do what they want, because at the end of the day, what matters most is that they're making money. Don't tell me you're so passionate about this character or about whatever, because it's the money. If people weren't lining up to go see the movies or picking up the streams or whatever, I don't think they would care about the characters as much. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate, because there's some of us who are true believers, as you call them, and we do it for the characters and for those moments that we can only picture in our heads or see in comics. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I checked last week still. I check every month or so. But that fight scene in Endgame still gives me goosebumps.
Oh yeah.
So
From the time
I
they walk around the corner and see Thanos to the time he says Avengers Assemble, it's glorious.
yeah. So it's moments like that just keep us coming back. But it's it's a rough world for because and now more than ever, especially with everyone having streaming services and studios and they want to have their own thing. Everyone's looking towards what comic books because that's where the storylines are already. That's where you already have an invested group of people that are going to want to go see the movies, and you hope to grow that. So I mean, just look at how good Umbrella Academy is going now. It's going to be on its third season, and that
and
only
the boys.
had one. Yeah, the boys is the boys is such an enigma to me because the book is so bad in a good way.
Yeah.
Like you're like it's like Jesus Christ, like you guys did what, and then you're just so curious as to how they're going to put that in on TV, and it's just been done so well, But what the commonality is comic books, man, and it's an art form that too many people I think always just associates as being kids' book, and it's the same, and it goes full circle back around to one of your first points with animated series. A lot of people won't give them a chance because they're animated, they're kids shows. And no, there's some of these animated films out there that really have a lot of depth in them that are worth watching.
Oh, I can get. I'm not even a Batman fan myself. Something wrong with keeping a series of teenage boys in tights in a cave. I just don't get. But Mask of the Phantasm is an absolutely great movie, not animated movie, just a good movie. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of Batman fans that became Batman fans for whatever reason, if they haven't seen that, should definitely go check that out as a prime example of what we could be missing in animation. Warner Brothers hasn't been missing it though. Their DC animation stuff's been on point, but just as an example for other companies. Wow. Well, there we go. I got one last question for you guys when it comes to this comic book thing. Because I love them. We both have, all three of us have long boxes in our closets and short boxes and things in frames and all that.
Oh yeah.
What do you? And I'm not talking fatigue. I'm just talking exactly what you guys are saying. The death of comics as we know it, potentially drying out these stories. I don't think the industry's fans will let it happen. But Mike, do you think that a second push for digital might work this time and be worth it and help save comic books?
Ooh, I don't know, because we're a society now that wants everything quickly and fast, and comic books are slow. I mean, you get them piece by piece, and you have to wait for one episode at a time, one book at a time,
and it's not always weekly like TV.
Yeah, it drags out, and I don't know if it's just that the youth or today's society can live with that. They want everything now, and so it's tough. I mean, even Star Wars comics that were doing well, in the at the beginning of the Force Awakens and stuff like that, they're starting to see kind of a slip in sales, and they have to constantly revamp Vader's story or something to make it so unique, so that people have to go like, oh, what's this, what's that, oh, Padme Amidala is still alive, what are you talking about? But you can only do that so many times. It's kind of like what Manny said with the Marvel doing the variant covers, and that's been the big sale. I mean, the variants were really cool in 2000, 2001 when Civil War kind of really, brought them out. But then you overdo that and people are like, I don't care about, a different variant there and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's digital. Maybe if you can get the story out fast enough, then yeah, but it's just a time of our society. We want everything now, or we want it in a TV show movie format. I mean, people are upset at Disney Plus for releasing these movies weekly episodes instead of the traditional streaming format, Netflix, where it's everything's at once. What was it like? People are in uproar when The Boys season 2 came out, and everybody was like, "Wait a minute, where the hell is the rest of the episodes?" And they're like, "Oh no, it's weekly." And they're like, there was a Twitter riot on there about that. So
that golden and painful age of geekdom that we are in. Manny, what about you, man? What could possibly save comics? Is a second digital push viable? Or I know you mentioned earlier thinking that potentially you're going to just see a lot more indie comics, smaller, but will even that save a quarter of the shops in the country?
Well, the thing is, I don't necessarily feel that is a digital problem, because comic book shops, I know that there's 2 or 3 local ones here in my area, still pretty far, but in my area, and there's through the pandemic they struggled a bit, but they're still doing fine. People still come in to look for their superheroes, for their stories, and that community is there, and I think every place has that. The biggest problem is the fact that they're being run by corporations like AT&T, and even I'll say, they care so much about Marvel Studios that sometimes I'm not saying that there's not passionate people at both ends, but Catherine Langford, not Langford. I keep forgetting her damn name. It doesn't matter. The lady running DC right now doesn't really understand the characters, doesn't really care for them.
Right. Yep.
And you can tell, because the fact is that if you look at New Frontier, which is coming up very soon, there's no direction. There's no there when Rebirth was going to pop off, and Jason and I were at WonderCon, and we were learning about the creative teams and the people that were putting on different books, and you were thinking, wow, you're putting they were putting Greg Rucka and Liam Sharp and Nicola Scott on Wonder Woman, and it was like mind blowing. Tom King was going to be doing Batman, and you were going to have Venditti over here, and you were going to have just names that you recognize and that have that carry a lot of weight with certain characters, and you don't have that anymore. You have a guy writing a Green Lantern book that often has talked mess on Twitter about Green Lantern, and doesn't and so doesn't like the specifics of John Stewart, for example. So when we saw that his name on the book, it was, we're not going to get we're probably not going to get a good John Stewart story here, or him at all, and so the trickle effect is, it's kind of, so Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, if they're doing well, the rest of the comics are going to do well. Why? Because you're going to come in and buy this book, and you're probably going to eye another one. You're probably going to be interested in another one, because you're going to enjoy that storyline so much that your comic book retailer is going to be like, hey, you really like this story by Tom King, for example. Then he's also doing this book, and it's like, let me check it out. And then it can open the floodgates possibilities of then going and checking out indie books, Aftershock, Boom Comics, Dark Horse, Valiant. I think I said Image already, and so you create a comic book fan that way, and then you gain an appreciation. But the fact of the matter is, because these corporations are so enamored with the films and the big money, you're not going to get that, and then you do have the potential of shops having to close because not enough coming, because not enough people care, because the people making the books don't care, and they're not putting the right talent on the right books, or letting them tell the stories they want to tell, or even just have a plan.
I almost wonder if it's time to open up the old-fashioned Marvel bullpen style of comics again, and bringing in more fans writers, of course, making sure they actually have the talent. But you know what I'm saying? I'm almost wondering if that old fashioned bullpen method, instead of the targeted, this is your book for 2 years, 6 months, whatever the case may be. I wonder if that might reinvigorate some of the creativity and allow fresh blood into the system, but still control. Like I said, not letting crap in. You still want quality control.
Well, you want to give the writers their chance to tell their story.
Yes,
and at some, like James Tynion has been doing the Joker War story, and he's doing a couple of other books, and he did great. It's just I thought it was the wrong time for it. But then you have other writers who I think have extremely overstayed their welcome. Brian Michael Bendis came over he was supposed to be the huge thing over at DC. He completely ruined Superman.
Right.
Absolutely. What is the first thing he does? He has him flirting with the firemen. He has a new introduction of he's like, hey, wait a minute, he's married with Lois. He wouldn't do that to Lois.
Yeah.
And just this one, and that was just right off the bat. And then what do? And fan displeasure with the book. And yes, he is credited because he did do Naomi, and that came out actually really, really well. And he does well with things like Young Justice and books like that. But hey, he created Miles Morales. So,
yeah.
They're not saying, but he's not the right guy for Superman. So what do? Now going forward, and after he's in charge now of Justice League, and already his team right off the bat is not the right team. That is not the Justice League. They have Black Adam's on the team, by the way.
Wow.
Just to give you a little heads up. And after Tom Taylor had done such a great job with everything he did, I think he deserved to have Justice League. If you look at Deceased, such a fantastic series, and then also what he did with Suicide Squad, it's really, really good stuff. But we're gonna go ahead and give it to this guy. And I already told you how I felt about the Green Lantern book going forward. And then but it's because you have somebody in charge who doesn't understand the characters, and so he really doesn't care they really don't care who they put on what book. It's about just getting them done, getting more stories. If Dan Didio was still on board, it would be a whole lot more control and a whole lot better. But unfortunately, that's one of the first things they did is let him go.
Damn. Well, I appreciate you guys both being on today. Thank you guys so much. Mike, any last words on anything that we talked about today? Hey?
No.
Or anything you want to plug for the site or anything?
Just keep coming to the site, guys.
There you go. Manny, any last words?
No, I think I've said too much.
I would suggest to the audience the same thing you've heard me suggest when it comes to movies that we're going to be getting, like Raya and the Dragon was announced, $29.99 Disney Premier Access. Everybody is wondering about what will happen with Black Widow and the MCU films. What I want to say to the audience is, doubling down on Manny and Mike, look, if you want something, you have to pay for it.
Yep.
I've been saying about these movies, you guys like Warner Brothers giving the movies away for free, but Disney actually is trying to make sure that they can make you an Avengers 5, a new Avengers or Young Avengers. They're trying to make sure they can still get you a movie that has a budget of $200 million. And comics are the same way. If you guys want comic book movies, comic book games, comic books, you got to buy them somehow, some way. And I highly suggest the local comic shop, because a good one will have a place where you and at least one or two other people can chit chat about the books that you're about to buy. And a great comic book store guy or girl, great comic book store person will definitely do exactly what Manny said. Zach Sparks, I went to high school with his brother, few years younger than me. When I got stationed in Georgia, he worked at Comics and More in Savannah, and always led me down great paths to some new awesome books that I had never heard of before, like Matt Fraction and Zdarsky's Sex Criminals. What a trip. Fucking Saga. Not This Will Defend. What's that Canadian one where they're protecting against America with like giant robots? I can't remember. Anyways,
I don't know.
He a good comic book clerk is going to help you guys out and get you to some awesome fucking stories. With that, make sure you guys are checking out LRMonline.com every single day for all your entertainment news, needs, and opinions. Check out the YouTube channel. All of our podcasts are going up there now regularly, guys. I think we got like nine or 10 shows a week, as well as countless celebrity, producer, writer, director interviews going up on the YouTube. And of course, our podcast channel, wherever you get podcasts from, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, we're there. We're free. Get it. Like, share, subscribe. Shockey, people can find you online to yell at you where?
Twitter, LRM_exclusive. And yeah, they can email me at michael@lrmonline.com.
Manny, where can people find you? Who?
They can find me at LRM_Emmanuel or on Instagram at riddlemethis_510.
And you guys can find me at that Kyle Malone on Twitter, at that one. That's the number one, at that one Kyle Malone on Instagram. Thank you guys so much for listening this week. Join us Monday, where we're going to have Mike Tully on from the Tully Show and the Jason Ellis Show, available on both YouTube and Patreon. To a degree, we'll explain how and why. Then we'll talk to you guys on Monday.